the way I understand Swiss people, including myself partially, is if you have a scale, yeah, and the middle would be the equilibrium. So if you put this, to me, like Swiss people are, it's like it's really heavy on one side, but to them that's normal, so they think that's the equilibrium, you know. My name is Urs Fischer. I'm an artist born in Zurich a long time ago. I don't live there anymore. I started having interest in making art. I never thought I'm an artist. I thought I have an interest in making art. The first memories I have of art as something interesting or intriguing to me is my grandparents had a selection of books, like I think it was 30 books, you know, like probably you get one every couple months from all different artists, you know, maybe stopping with Rousseau or something, like in the time frame, going from Renaissance to Rousseau, or maybe there was some Hellenistic and Roman stuff there too. So there were all these books I logically could not read, but I liked some of the pictures, you know. And the pictures, to me, they were less about that they were beautiful, they were just strange. Like one thing I always remember, there was, I think it's a Bruegel painting, or a Bosch, I forgot, where they serve plates in a restaurant, or like in some kind of something, what's the predecessor of a restaurant? And some plates had white stuff on it, and some plates had red stuff on it, you know? And you just ask yourself, like, you know, what is this? So I was fascinated by these books. And they also, because they were not the nicest books, they were on the bottom row, you know? So when you're little, you take them out because that's, so for all parents, if you want your children to be interested, put the art books on the very bottom, you know, don't put them up. I grew up in a household, both my parents being doctors. There were also a lot of medical books also down there because they just finished studying and they were young. And in there were a lot of illustrations and photographs of everything that goes wrong. So me and my sister, we grew up with these images of everything that goes wrong. Logically also, on a dinner table, my parents talk about everything that was abnormal, not the normal stuff. Why mention it? It's like the strange stuff. So that's part of my visual upbringing is informed by some of these images in reproduction. You know, Switzerland is I grew up in Zurich. It's a beautiful city. Everything has its place. It is one of the few European countries that was not dragged into a war. Also, there was no destruction really. Like there were no wounds. I think in a lot of European countries there were wounds to be felt from the war. That didn't exist, you know. So there was always like a sense of continuity, and in that sense of continuity, it's probably also a place where people don't like conflict because they're not used to conflict, you know. So I think these things were somewhat formative. The way I understand Swiss people, including myself partially, is if you have a scale, yeah, and the middle would be the equilibrium. So if you put this, to me, like Swiss people are, it's like it's really heavy on one side, but to them that's normal, so they think that's the equilibrium, you know. So there is a sense of normal there, you know. People believe in normal somewhat, or in my experience, it felt like people believe in normal. making art is probably was probably a way to react or create your own space in a relatively in a society that doesn't allow too much room. Funny enough, a lot of art because of its history, there is a lot of art in Switzerland that comes out of an autodidactic way because we never had a unifying, even the language is not unified. The written language is unified. It's German language that got unified probably by Luther around the time where the printed word came. But other than that, it's all dialects. And what you have a lot of people. The art historically was either people went abroad and studied there, and in this academic European thing where people had masters or you study and the function of art probably throughout Europe was to some degree represented power. Actually, there is a lot of history of collecting in Switzerland because I think they filled the void with the money they made. They went to Paris, this and that. So they lived a lifestyle. So I grew up in a country that is a lot of support for artists actually, or like collecting or caring for it, or institutions. So we grow up in a culture that kind of is supportive. But on the other hand, there was no academy, nothing. So a lot of it is actually somewhat autodidactic in the way you approach it. So you don't enter a system that's already kind of there. It's a bit all over the place. And I think, I see that now as a real advantage because there's a lot of freedom because you don't have, it's not clear what you do. If you think of it, like I think we live in a time where context is the content at this very point, or the way we understand it. Context is something that always moves, But at this point, if you think of, let's say, the medium is the message, I think context is the message. My first artistic endeavors that were not like, making drawings as a child and then in school, where I had a photo camera given to me when I was like 11 or so. I inherited an old camera. And I really enjoyed making some photos. And then my sister, she had a boyfriend that liked that too. And we had a dark room and we could develop some, we go to the zoo and photograph animals. It's not very ambitious in this way. But so I just enjoyed the process. And I mean, we have a very different idea what an image is now, since we have smartphones primarily, but if you do something and you take it home, there's a technical thing and you develop it and you have your picture and it's a way of I think making a photograph or an image is a way of owning the world a little bit, your world, your view, like you can fix something. So I enjoyed that, and then I went to the arts and crafts school at 16. It was not like a university, and there we had a photo course, and that was just like run by somebody that's way cooler than the regular teachers. So it was more cool, and then I started studying photography there, which was also not a university type thing, more like a apprenticeship, like a system, and at some point that we kind of run its course after about 2 years for me. I mean, you learn the technical stuff, and it felt like it moves very slowly. And so since I'm a child, I wanted to leave my home. And so when I was 19, I did. I moved to Amsterdam because I've been there before. I didn't speak any English, and I didn't know. And I liked clubs, and they had good clubs. And so maybe I start there, And then I bumped into some other young people that were doing some art stuff. And, it organically led me to stay there and meet people. I had a girlfriend, she made movies, and I helped her build all these sets. And so it's more like a sculptural thing. I worked on set design for theater before when I was like 18, 19, for some off theater stuff, and for things we organized a lot of house parties, like small parties, 1, 2, 300 people, and you decorate it. So there was always like an improvisational, quick thing there. For me, like it was a natural thing, and then I worked with some on some theater productions before. So the set design, it's kind of like it's not the real thing. It doesn't have to last. It's like it looks a certain way. It's like a 00 of sorts. You just make it feel and look like something, and the back of it is garbage. It's like if you look behind a painting, it's nothing. It's really just that surface. Well, then I was there for a while, and I tried to do things, but logically, when you're a young artist and you don't sell anything, you kind of got to make a living. So you can either chop wood or do all kind of jobs. So it was very difficult to make any form of living when I lived in Amsterdam. So I decided to go back to Zurich for a little bit.